So we've lifted the screen or cover off of the firebox, which exposes the, you saw a yellow gas manual shut off earlier. This is a red one right here. So you just take that and turn it, and it manually turns the gas off to the fireplace if you ever need to do that. Alright, taking a look at the sprinkler system here. I've only seen a commercial grade sprinkler system and control panel and watering schedule key, which is this here. I've not seen a residential one. What that means is basically this is a super irrigation system, meaning you've got program A, program B, and program C, and then also you have these are your start times, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So what you have is a sprinkler system that essentially can water, well, if we have 4 start times and 3 programs, 4 times 3 is 12. Essentially this system can water 12 times in one day. And if you're not careful and you start programming different letters here and different start times, you can wind up with a pretty high water bill. So in order to kind of adjust this to make it to where it's just a simple residential sprinkler system, the only thing that you'll want to make sure is programmed and scheduled to come on and run is program A, start time 1. You can see that there. Program A, start time 1. Everything else should be in the off position. So A2, A3, A4, B1, 2, 3, 4, and C1, 2, 3, 4 should all be in the off position, which typically is midnight, 12 a.m. And we'll go out here shortly and do a quick run through of it there at the control panel. So one of the most important things with your sprinkler system and why a sprinkler system is so important is because it is almost directly tied to your foundation in relationship. What your sprinkler system is trying to accomplish is keep the ground around the foundation always consistently kind of in a moist environment. So the ground and the native soil around the foundation is always giving it kind of like a tight hug. So the ground's not drying out and wanting to pull away from the foundation. And you're not keeping the ground too wet, which is causing undue stress and pressure and swelling of the native soil around the foundation. So as long as you're running this at the recommended times, you really shouldn't ever have any issues with any soil pulling away from the foundation or swelling up around the foundation. Now the way that you do that is when the temperature is consistently above 80 degrees, not just 1 or 2 days of the week, but once it becomes consistently above 80 degrees, you'll want to start running the system twice a week. Typically is on Mondays and Thursdays. Kind of depends on which part of town you live in, what your watering schedule is, if there's a water restriction that's going on in that particular municipality or city. But usually around this area, I say you're pretty safe doing Mondays and Thursdays. And then once the temperature goes below 80 degrees consistently, you'll want to make sure that you eliminate one of those 2 days of the week. So you'll want to eliminate either Monday or Thursday. So it's only watering once a week. Usually, again, that's somewhere like the air conditioner, kind of around November, somewhere late March, April. That's when you kind of want to do your adjustments on the sprinkler system. To kind of move around on the different stations or the different zones in the yard, that's also important to briefly talk about because they are now required to have kind of different styles of irrigation heads and irrigation sprayers. So most of the time when an irrigation system is installed, you can stand in front of the house and the street and you can tell which way that the installers are going to install the system. So for this particular instance, on this house, if we stood in front of the street and looked at the house, we've got left, so starting in the front and then going to the left. So we can tell on this house, we're going to move clockwise around the house. So on the front yard, this is station 1 there. In the front yard, that's regular pop-up sprayers, just like we're all used to. They pop up, they water, anywhere between 90 and 180 degrees. On those, it is just a regular 8 to 12 minutes. That's your minimum amount, and that's a suggested maximum amount. So 8 to 12 minutes on that first one there. And then as we're moving over to the left side yard, now the left side yard is, the side yards can get really tricky really fast, and that's because on side yards, what you're doing is, take a look at this here. What you're doing is, you're double watering the side yards. The neighbor's yard here has sprinklers all up along their foundation, and those sprayers are coming back towards the middle of the yard. And then the sprinklers for this house are up along the foundation here and are spraying this way. So you're double watering this side of the yard, typically on the same day. Now, that wouldn't be a problem. However, the big problem lies that this is a side yard. It doesn't get a lot of airflow, and it doesn't get a lot of sunlight. As you can see right now, it's got a pretty good shadow in it. You might not be able to see it, but it's got a pretty good shadow on it. So not a lot of airflow, not a lot of sunlight. Takes a little while to dry out. So on that particular instance, we'll go back over here to the control panel, or the key. So on the left side yard, we only want to water those 1 to 3 minutes maximum. That is a sufficient amount of moisture and water to keep that native soil and ground over there moist enough and appropriate enough to kind of keep that soil hugging the foundation over there. So moving on to the third station, that's the backyard rotors. Now those rotors are similar to a pop-up sprayer. So they'll recess back into their housing once they're finished. So they'll raise up when the system comes on. And then there's just 3 little kind of slits, or 3 little dots that are on the top of those heads. And they don't put out a lot of water. They do rotate a little bit, but they just don't put out a lot of water. So that's why they put out enough water, but not quite as much as what this front yard regular pop-up sprayers would be. So that's why we need to water the rotors 12 to 15 minutes, which is a little bit longer time, but it is the same equivalent as running 8 to 12 minutes, same amount of water. It's just the output or the discharge of those rotor heads just isn't quite as much. So going back over here to 4, we got another backyard rotors. Again, that's 12 to 15. Now we're to the right side. Now we have 2 right sides, as you can tell here. So the first right side, that's where it comes into play that we're going clockwise around the house. So this first right side is going to be the actual true side of the yard. Now, this is true for this particular house because it is what's called a locked lot, which means that there is a neighboring house on either side of this house. Going to be a little bit different if you have a corner lot or you have an end lot where you don't have a neighboring house on the other side. So if that's the case, then, we need to go back to just regular front yard or a regular side yard watering 8 to 12 minutes. But on any other regular locked lot, on the side yards that don't get a lot of airflow or sun, same thing, 1 to 3 minutes here. And then this second right side will be the small side of the yard that's on this house, it'll be the driveway. So there's a small section of sodding there by the side of the driveway to the property line. That's just like a front yard. It gets regular sun, it gets regular airflow, so that would be 8 to 12 minutes for that particular station right there. Now going to the drip lines. They kind of abbreviated this. This is a drip line for the flower bed. This is a code requirement. We have to have drip lines A drip line is essentially a tube. It's probably a 1/2-inch tube that sits underneath the ground, and it just has a few perforations in it. Kind of similar to a soaker hose, but it actually has teeny small holes in it about every 12 inches or so. Now on those, because there isn't a lot of discharge or output to them, you have to water those a minimum of 25 minutes. You can adjust your sprinkler system minutes to run or operate longer than that, but 25 minutes was the minimum to keep the vegetation alive. All that the drip lines are doing is just saturating the soil there, you know, a few inches down to keep everything sustaining and growing. Going to the parkway, that's another drip line there. The parkway is the area between the street and the city sidewalk. It's that small strip there up by the street. Those also are required to be drip lines, and again, another 25 minutes minimum on those. And then the trees are tied together on one zone. Typically it's going to be the last zone, or I keep saying zone, but they call them stations. It's going to be the last station most of the time on any controller panel key here. So on those, supposedly they put out 3 gallons of water a minute on those tree bubblers, which kind of makes that little water umbrella. They are tied together, the front and the backyard both together on one station. Usually it's the last station again. So 3 to 5 minutes on those, and you should be fine. All of these should be set up for your minimums, and then kind of adjust them as you go, or if need be. If you put some fertilizer down, you may want to adjust them to kind of their recommended maximums for a week or two, and then go back to the minimums. So let's go out in the garage real quick, and I'll demonstrate how to turn the Mondays and Thursdays, if you want to turn Thursdays on or if you want to cut Thursdays off. Technically speaking, that should be about the only thing you'll need to do with the sprinkler system. Now, if you do forget to turn the sprinkler system off, well, never turn it off, but if you do forget to turn the sprinkler system off for Thursdays, once the temperature gets below 80 degrees consistently, it's not going to hurt anything. You're not damaging your foundation. The only thing you're doing is wasting a little bit of water and causing yourself a few more dollars on your water bill a month, because it's not really required or really recommended to run your sprinkler system twice a week once the temperature goes below 80. So once you remember to do that, you may want to set something up on your calendar reminder, or however you want to remember it, to turn it off sometime around November or December, just on the Thursday or the Monday. Keep it running for one day after that. Run out in the garage here and demonstrate that. All right, so here we are. We're at the control panel here. Most control panels, different brands, are a little bit different. Most of them are about the same though. You're gonna have a date and a time, which typically they're atomic, so if the power ever goes out, they reset themselves, but you might wanna double check just in case. It's gonna have your start times, which that corresponds back to all of your station run times. You can just scroll through with your arrows here with each station and make sure that they're set up on the correct minute or correct minutes. Then you're gonna have this is your start times for when the system's actually gonna come on. Your run times are what your run times are associated with the station, sorry there. Start times are what's gonna come on in the morning. I always say 5 a.m. That's a perfect time year round to run the sprinkler systems. You're going to have the most amount of water pressure, you're going to have the least amount of wind, and you're going to have the least amount of evaporation. That's one of the key figures of why you want to run the system twice a week once it gets warm, is because of evaporation. So you get your run times, again, correlated to all of those times right there and all of these stations. And then this is where we're out. This is why we're out here, is to look at the water days. All right, so real quick, let's go to start times. This is at 4 a.m. You can see that. So we're gonna go ahead and bump this up to 5 a.m. Okay, now what we have here is program A, start time 1. That's all we need to have running on this system. So let's scroll through just to make sure that everything else is off. So we go to start time 2. Okay, program A start time 2 is off. Program A start time 3 is off. Program A start time 4 is off. Great. Let's go to, this is a program button, right? It's a bad button. You don't really want to ever use that, but we're just making sure everything is off. So let's take a look at program B here. Let's make sure everything is off on program B. So start time 1 is off, 2 is off, 3 is off, good. Go into program C. Everything is off on C. So A1 is the only start time that it's supposed to come on at 5 a.m. Perfect. Okay, so now we're done with start times. So go into run times. You can run through there and adjust all of those. This corresponds, you know, we've got station 1. Looks like it's running for 11 minutes. You can adjust that if you want, you know, plus or minus. And again, start time 1 or station 1. And then you can scroll over to station 2, so on and so forth. Okay, let's go to water days. Okay, on the water days, you're going to see a raindrop with the abbreviated name of the week. So you can tell here, let me study my phone here so you can see this a little bit better. You can see here it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay, so right now it says we are watering on Monday. That's good. We're going to hit the plus sign right here saying yes, we do want to water on Monday. It's going to automatically move us to Tuesday. And we're going to hit the minus or negative sign and say no, we don't want to water on Tuesday. Now it shows it's watering on Wednesday. We want to cut that off. So hit the negative or minus button. No, we don't want to water on Wednesday. Now we're on to Thursday. Thursday, yes, we do want to water. We hit the plus sign. Now Friday, we don't want to water. We want to hit the negative sign. And then Saturday or Sunday are already off. So one of the most important things when you ever adjust this is when you finish, always make certain that you take this dial and turn it back to run. If it gets accidentally left on either one of these settings, the system is not going to come on. So always make sure that you leave and walk away from the system when this is back to run. All right, and then you've got your rain freeze sensor protector right here on the side. This is like a walkie-talkie. There's another one outside, typically in the backyard. Looks like a white contraption with a little antenna on it. It's got a little wire running to it into the ground and then up through this system. And what this does is it's a rain freeze sensor protector. So once so many raindrops hit the outside antenna, it's going to shut the system down automatically. Once the antenna with the built-in thermostat or thermometer in it, once it goes below 32 degrees freezing, then it's going to automatically turn the system off. So you always want to make sure that that is active. Okay, this is your, let's get this figured out. Yeah, this is your rain sensor. Always make sure that it's pulled down to active. It is a state law. You're not supposed to run the sprinklers below freezing. You get ice and some frozen areas on the front of the house and the street. So always make sure that's on active. And that's pretty much, you've got typically there's always a manual that comes with this. It's pretty in-depth and pretty intense, only because, again, this is a commercial grade system. So those are pretty much the basics of it, of what you need to do there. You can do a manual test. If you want to test each zone out manually over here, then just find your corresponding station that you want to test and scroll over to whatever station you want to, and then turn this dial back to run, and it'll manual test that one certain station to make sure that you don't have any, leaking heads or gushers, or you don't have any broken lines or any heads that need adjusted or twisted around, they're spraying on the driveway or whatever the case may be. We got a solar sink here, which this is already programmed. I believe this has something to do with the daylight savings time, some other factors involved. The installers always have this set up perfectly. You don't have to mess with that. Season adjust, this is 100%. So if it does rain, then let's say it rained yesterday for 1.5 inches, 2 inches. What this is going to do is this is going to cut this percentage of water that's coming out the heads down to 90% or 80%. So you always want to make sure if you ever adjust your run times for each station, you always want to make sure that the season adjust is on 100 and not 80%. So you're getting the equivalent amount of minutes that you're telling the system to do. But again, it gets technical really fast. Really the only thing you need to worry about is the water days and how to turn off Thursday or off Monday. So, you know, we're watering Mondays and Thursdays. So to turn it off, we want to say yes on Monday, no on Tuesday, no on Wednesday, no on Thursday. Now we're only watering on Monday. So this would be like the cold weather watering schedule now. And then last but not least, most importantly, always make sure that we're back to run. That's it for the sprinkler system. And lastly, with the electrical shutoffs, pretty self-explanatory on the breaker panel. You can see here, if you take a look, all of the breakers are facing inward on this side, and all of the switches are facing inward on this side. So yes, the panel is labeled. However, you're going to know if there's a problem with the panel because you're going to lose electricity inside the house. You can come out here and you can see that, oh yeah, this one right here, which is 21. We go back over here to 21. We see the family in the patio. Oh, yep, the family in the patio did lose power 5 minutes ago. So you can kind of double check to make sure, but otherwise you can just step out here and you can see which one is not lined up facing inward. So you can't just turn it on. You have to go off, all the way off, okay? And then back on. And that's how you trip or reset any area. It's a new code requirement. We have to have these, basically like the push button plugs that you see in the kitchens and the bathrooms. Now we have to put them in the breaker panel. So if you ever have any kind of trip or electricity loss, check these to make sure that these haven't tripped. This is just a reset button that inspectors require us to have on there. That's it.